Welcome to Jurassic World.
Welcome to the Jurassic World Minute, where we visit Jurassic World 1 minute at a time. Family weekends aren't always happy ones. I'm Brad.
I'm Dave.
And here we are to discuss minute 29 of Jurassic World. Before we get to that, David, roaring over to Jurassic-Pedia.com, we have right up here by second floor on Owens Motorcycle. 2006, said the name before, Scrambler.
Yeah, this is an off-road motorcycle. Again, another article written by contributor Sickle Claw. This was, or the motorcycle itself was always something that I really liked about, not maybe specifically Owen's character, but something that I liked introduced into the movies, because we've had the, what was that, the Yamaha, I think, in The Lost World, that we saw for that short clip on the game trail. And this is kind of really like one of those classic-looking motorcycle types. And I did like that we had a new kind of vehicle like that we hadn't really had before in these movies. We never really had a motorcycle as a main vehicle, despite it being one in the second novel.
Even though that one was supposed to be electric. This one's definitely a... Well, they say one of the key features, twin exhaust, and that when we get to it later in the minutes, you can definitely hear it when he starts it up. But yeah, no, I think the Lost World one was a German. I think it started with B. It was Brutner or something.
Something like that, yeah. It's we've got the article for it on this on Pedia someplace. Yeah. I think I wrote it actually.
Well, yeah, that'd be one of the early articles, I'd imagine, too, going back to the Lost World. But, yeah, this article here pretty much describes what the motorcycle is and then goes into its key features in the film and where it sort of ends up at the end of the film, which I thought he got on a quad and rode away with Blue following, but here it says he gets on his bike, so we can discuss that more later on the film when he's out riding along with the Raptor Squad.
I checked it. I did write the electric motorcycle article from the novel. It was a custom piece by Thorn Mobile Field Systems. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a modified.
Again, something to be a good little callback to that novel, seeing something like that in the film. But we get that with this motorcycle and what happens later in the film. That little bit of callback to Sarah and the Raptors. So yeah, head over to Jurassic-Pedia.com for this and many more articles.
Don't ever turn your back to the cage.
Dave, ready to get into minute 29.
I am.
As we enter minute 28 of Jurassic World, Karen started to cry and began grilling Clare about how Zach would treat Gray if they're left alone. Clare apologises and doesn't say she's going to go and find the boys and spend the rest of the day with them, but instead says, tomorrow I'll take a day off work and I won't leave their side. How does Karen even think this is okay? Karen sniffles and recites some meta-spiritual quote from their mother, which Claire picks up on and retorts. The following 30 seconds is back and forth blah between Karen and Claire about having kids, not having kids, if you'll have kids, and Mum's line. At the 32-second mark, the conversation's over. Yes. Only to go into possibly a worse one. As Claire pulls up at Owen's bungalow. Her Mercedes looking shiny and new, as if it was a car advertisement or something. At the 50-second mark, we cut to Owen, sitting on a bucket, working on his motorbike. He looks across and sees Claire get out of the car. She spends a moment fixing up her hair and starts to walk over to him as he asks no one, what do they want now? And as the minute ends, she says, Mr. Grady, I need you to come have a look at something.
As we ended minute 28, Karen had started to break down after hearing about Claire's bad day. And, well, more so that she wasn't with the boys, and she told Claire this was meant to be a family weekend, and she hasn't seen the boys in forever. Some family weekend this is going to be. Karen continues, I know how Zach will treat Gray if they're by themselves. He can be just so mean. We get some of the name calling here in the film, but we don't get the really mean things. I was half expecting him to punch him or be really really mean.
Yeah, abusive big brother.
Yeah, ow.
Something like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Slap him in the back of the head or anything like that.
But at the same time, I mean, we kind of get the opposite towards the end of the movie. We see Zach kind of really cheering up Gray and reminding him of the time they fought the monster in the closet, you know?
Yeah, the brotherly bonding, it sort of grows throughout the film.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like... It's like we'd never really see this kind of mean streak. We see kind of brotherly banter, but nothing I'd really call bullying, you know?
Yeah, well, that's on the boat. He walks away from him because Gray's spouting off facts about the dinosaurs, and even at the petting zoo here telling him to put his dog pouch away. It's not... it's just that sibling sort of... yeah, it's not anything anywhere near as bad as what Karen's describing.
Yeah. And anybody who's been in a sibling relationship or even pseudo-sibling relationship understands the kind of don't go away, it's not cool for me to be seen with kind of thing, you know? I mean, I have a younger cousin who, even to this day, still monkey see, monkey do's me. Yep. I caught her the last time I was with her. I crack my neck in a very specific way. I push it forward at the base of my chin, and I then, like, not even 5 minutes later, I caught her doing the same thing. I'm like, really? You're still copying me?
Yep.
I mean, it's just one of those things that he's going to have to accept is going to happen the rest of his life.
Definitely. But Claire apologises. As behind Karen, you can see a man in a suit tapping on the big glass window. She says, tomorrow I'm going to spend the entire day with him. I'm going to take time off work and not leave their side, I promise. And I often criticise fan service. We talked about in the August issue of Jurassic Minutes with the Site B and InGen crate, but it would have been really cool if we had a big Cohen, Swain and Ross lawyers sign on this window, referencing back to that original novel.
Yes, I think it would have been. I mean, even though they were the lawyers the lawyers Gennaro was representing the investors firm through, I still think that it would have been a nice nod, you know? I mean, it would have been subtle, and it would have kind of been one of those blink and you miss it nods. But at the same time, I think that the movie kind of needed more of that and less in-your-face fan service. You know?
Yeah, just something small like that. The hardcore fans would have knew exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. Or should I say fans of the book would have known exactly what it was.
Well, it's funny because I just saw a tweet from BD Wong where a fan tweeted him, said, "Since when were you the villain?" And BD Wong basically said, "Dude, you gotta read the book."
Yeah. Yeah. But even some sort of lawyer sign here, because this could be just a workplace. We don't get the drop later on until Gray and Zach are talking about the divorce. we did have the last family breakfast line earlier, but we sort of don't. It's not really telegraphed real well here that this is a divorce hearing. The papers are being signed.
But at the same time, I mean, it is kind of a implied subtlety, you know? I mean, we did see them kind of fighting at the airport as well, and that was... I mean, it was kind of implied that they are not having a relationship. They're not on a steady relationship, you know?
Which is sort of odd now, going all the way back to the Mitchell house, and the fact that if they're not together... surely if these papers are getting drawn up now, they've probably been separated for a while. Yet they're still both in the people mover to take the boys to the airport. You'd think they'd be in one of the other's cars.
True.
Karen Sniffleson says, "Yeah, well, a promise tomorrow is worth a lot less than trying today." And Claire scoffs at the comment. So you're using mum's lines now, which that's not a line I heard. Inspirational mother.
My mom was always kind of old school. She always came up with those kind of old idioms. You know. Yep.
But Karen says, "Well, I know that works." And you'll find out when you have kids one day. And we get the if joke here. Claire's saying if, and Karen's saying it's worth it. And Claire sort of being the immature one here, just sort of, "Bye, Mum. I'm ending the call." And Karen says bye, and that's the end of the phone call. Yeah, thanks, Dad. Yeah, but that's the end of the phone call scene, as Claire's just sitting quietly in a car, biting her lip. I've seen this more of crap. How am I going to be able to take tomorrow off and spend time with the boys? I've just promised I'd do something. I don't know if I'll be able to keep up that promise.
Well, I mean, she will be able to be spending a lot of the evening with them. That's kind of guaranteed. Fighting for their lives.
Yep, running and screaming. And now we cut to the National Geographic of Hawaii shots again. We've got another beautiful part of Hawaii here. The very familiar looking trees and a little Mercedes commercial being shown as the two people that could probably never afford one. I like this one more than the commercial we get later on with it roaring along the road.
Yeah, at the same time, I do kind of like those shots just for the way they set up the jungle. Like this one here, we see the car pulling up to Owen's cabin, and you can see in the background those mountains with the big dark gray clouds swirling across the tops. I'm like, almost, but not quite there. I wish we had more of that imagery in this movie, you know?
Yeah. Sort of setting up that setting up that ominous, that sort of ominous look.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I mean, you could argue some of the symbolism there, because I know that a lot of paintings that use clouds and storms in that way to kind of foreshadow a kind of coming conflict. So you do have these dark swirling storm clouds coming over the mountain and verging into the sunshine of the day, but at the same time, it never really gets progressively cloudier or darker. So it's the metaphor is kind of lost, you know.
Well, we talked about it back with the control room. There's a satellite imagery there shows a hurricane about to hit the island. Yeah, we don't see it here at all. Here we are a couple of hours later, maybe, and it's just a little bit of cloud out. But as the camera pulls back, we get to see that streamline. They're called an Aerostream, aren't they? Camper, and the cabin, sort of all built together here.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like a conglomerate. Like he built a cabin around the camper, you know?
Yeah, well, he's just sort of throwing a heap of stuff together. Obviously, maybe that's
kind of a real junk pile.
Yeah. Well, at least in Fallen Kingdom, he finally gets to start from scratch and build build the cabin that he wants to build. Whether or not we see a completed one in Dominion or not, a completely another thing. But we cut to Owen sitting on a bucket, working away on his motorcycle with the lake in the background, and a beautiful location. And he's been working out. Those big love handles bursting out of his shirt here.
And we can also hear the Brachiosaurus in the background, too. I mean, I think it's calling we hear the Brachiosaurus calls numerous times during the scene.
Yeah, it's just all that ambient noise in the background, which, of course, and that's sort of one thing with how small Nublar is and how much sort of dinosaur noises would carry. You'd think it'd be something that'd be more of a mainstay. Maybe not on Main Street where you got the noise of crowds and all that sort of thing going on, but even later when they're at the Indominus panel, I suppose it's out of the way a little bit, but you should have more of these sort of sounds in the background, even just the T-Rex roaring or something in the background as well, just that sound travelling up the valley. But we get his POV of Claire getting out of the car, high heels, and obviously not dressed for the occasion. She takes a moment to look in the car's window and fixes the hair and the reflection. Again, that control freak going for perfection. We haven't really talked much about a wardrobe, aside from the shoes and the hair, obviously, but the all white. I think it looks like white stockings here, otherwise she's never gets any sun, which could go back to Masrani's comment from earlier, being a ginger, but obviously a callback to Hammond here with the all white.
Well, not only that, but it's also white is a color that prevents a very kind of sterile, kind of off-putting kind of attitude. When you're wearing all white, you give this kind of implied sense that you are a very organized, straightforward, clean person. You know, I mean, anybody who wears white is obviously not expecting to be involved in the dirt.
No. Yeah, and I still see people sort of comparing her to Hammond when there's not really a comparison. We didn't get to... Jurassic Park wasn't at a state where there was going to be park operations, all that sort of stuff. Maybe they'd already hired, but they weren't on the island, at least anyway, that we know of back in the day. But this being a lot bigger park, obviously a lot more staff here than what Jurassic Park would have had. But we cut back to Owen as he's bolting something onto his bike, and he asks to no one, what do they want now? So obviously the only time any park staff have come to see him is because they've wanted something in the past. It's sort of a little bit of a confirmation here too, the fact that he works for InGen, not for Jurassic World staff.
Well, I think it's always been assumed that he is, I mean, not like you said, works directly for InGen, but that his whole little cabin setup here is something of is not like officially part of the park. It's just something he kind of parked here, and you know, I mean, it's just it just so happens to be where he lives.
How many times do you reckon he's got back from the Raptor enclosure and found a note on the door saying "clean up"? You can get evicted.
Yeah, he's not staffed in the park staff accommodations. He just kind of parked his shit here and said, "This is mine."
And it is a beautiful spot that is found here. I like that. That's good. And as the minute ends, Claire walks over to him and says, "Mr. Grady, I need you to come take a look at something." And we're going to get the counter to Mr. Grady next minute. Heading over to novel comparisons quickly. In a novel, as I said last minute, we don't get the phone call. It sort of cuts from the goat being eaten to Owen returning to his cabin, still fuming after the conversation with Hoskins, and to take his mind off things, he starts working on his bike, but doesn't get far when a silver Mercedes pulls up. And all the dialogue from there was pretty much the same as what we get in the film.
There is something that you don't really get in the movie, at least I never did, until kind of reading the junior novel here, was that he's working on his bike to kind of cool off from the conversation from Hoskins, knowing that what Hoskins saw kind of proved what Hoskins wanted to be correct. And so I always kind of just figured that he was doing general maintenance on his bike, that he wasn't like kind of doing an Anakin Skywalker where fixing things, it makes him feel relaxed, you know?
Yeah. Whether it was Hoskins' plan just to give the Raptors a field test, or his threat that we're going to do it with or without you boys. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be really written here into the final film. Another actor may have been a bit more brooding or something here, because Chris Pratt's going to be a lot more comedic in these next few minutes. Maybe too far.
And of course, Josh Brolin was originally slated to be in this role, so we know that he probably definitely would have played more brooding.
Yeah.
Or played it up at least, you know? I do kind of wonder what the movie would have been like, and this might be something that we could return to at the end of the movie, what it would have been like had Josh Brolin and Idris Elba gotten the respective roles of Owen Grady and Barry, you know?
Yeah, I'm just thinking of possibilities now. Because I don't think all the stuff at the Raptor Pen, none of it's being comedic.
Exactly, yeah.
So I reckon Brolin would have been fantastic there, just going against Vincent D'Onofrio. That would have been really good.
Definitely.
And I'm just